I'm 22, male. And for most of my life, I was basically a puppet dancing to my family's tune. My parents were strict in a way that wasn't just protective, it was suffocating. They wrapped control in the disguise of tradition and what's best for you. If I ever questioned anything, they'd guilt-trip me with lines like, after everything we've done for you, or, you don't understand now, but you will someday. It wasn't guidance, it was manipulation. And for the longest time, I didn't even realize I was caught in it. Then came Jade, my fiancée. She's 28, fiery, artistic, and everything my family wasn't. Tattoos, combat boots, unapologetically bold. She owns her own art studio and has this raw, fearless energy that drew me in the second we met. She made me feel seen, alive, and that was a problem for my family. My parents saw her as a threat, someone pulling me out of their grip. My sister Lexi, who's 29 and basically their golden child, took it a step further, constantly hinting that Jade was using me, or just a phase I'd regret. It was all so passive-aggressive, like I was too stupid to make my own choices. At first, I tried to balance it, keep the peace. I'd bring Jade to family dinners only to watch my mom glare at her tattoos like they were diseases. My dad would ask her condescending questions about her career like it wasn't a real job. Lexi? She'd fake smile through gritted teeth and then immediately pull me aside to warn me I was ruining my future. Every moment with them felt like a silent war. Then one night, it all boiled over. Jade and I had announced our engagement, nothing huge, just a small gathering at our place. We invited my family, hoping for support, maybe a little warmth. Instead, they hijacked the entire evening. My mom cornered Jade in the kitchen and said, if you really loved him, you'd step aside. My sister told me flat out that Jade was a mistake, and my dad? He handed me a manila envelope and said, think this through before you throw your life away. Inside were legal documents, an ultimatum in the form of a trust fund clause. Basically, if I married Jade, I'd be cut off. No inheritance, no support, nothing. That was the moment it hit me. They didn't love me, they wanted to own me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just get angry, I got strategic. Growing up in my family was like living in a perfectly decorated prison. From the outside, we looked like a polished upper-middle-class family with Sunday brunches and Instagrammable vacations. But behind closed doors, there were rules. Rules that weren't spoken, just understood, and breaking them meant emotional exile. My sister Lexi played the game perfectly. She did everything my parents wanted, majored in finance, married a lawyer, dressed conservatively, and never questioned anything. She was the blueprint, the trophy, and they never let me forget it. I, on the other hand, was the creative kid. I loved photography, wanted to study design, and had a quiet streak that made it easy for them to ignore me when it was convenient, and control me when it wasn't. When I turned 18 and told them I wanted to pursue graphic design instead of going to law school like my dad, the house went silent for a whole day. Then came the lectures, the guilt, the threats to pull financial support, and finally, a forced compromise. I could study design, but only at the university they chose, while living at home, under their supervision. Lexi was always part of that control system. She'd frame it like she was trying to help me, but it always felt more like surveillance. Don't wear that to dinner, Mom hates it. You shouldn't post that photo, it makes you look immature. Dad's been stressed, maybe don't bring up your art stuff tonight. I was being managed like a PR project, not treated like a person. Then came Jade. We met at a pop-up gallery downtown. She was showcasing her new collection, and I was covering the event for a photography assignment. She was chaos and color and soul. The first time we talked, she asked me, what would you create if nobody was watching? No one had ever asked me something like that. She didn't care about my last name, my family's expectations, or my resume. She saw me. As we got closer, I felt like I was finally breathing for the first time. Jade challenged me. She called out my people-pleasing habits, pushed me to draw boundaries, and slowly, I started imagining a life that wasn't filtered through my parents' lens. But the more independent I became, the tighter my family pulled the leash. My mom became passive-aggressive to the point of absurdity. It's not that I don't like her, she's just so different from us. Lexi started monitoring my social media again, sending screenshots of my posts to the family group chat with sarcastic comments like, "Love this rebellious phase." My dad sat me down one day and said, "I know you think this girl's good for you, but she's going to ruin everything we've built for you." That line stuck with me. Everything we've built for you. Like I was a project, a product they had designed, and Jade was the virus corrupting it. But what really flipped the switch for me wasn't the insults, the condescension, or even the threat of cutting me off. It was the betrayal. One afternoon, I accidentally overheard Lexi talking on the phone with my mom. She was in the guest room, door half open, assuming I was out. I only caught a few sentences, but it was enough. "I think we should just push the trust fund clause now. He'll cave. He always does. She won't stay if he's broke." It wasn't concern. It was strategy, manipulation. And the worst part? They weren't just trying to break me and Jade up. They were gambling that I'd fold the moment money was on the line. That I was so spineless, I'd give up the one person who actually made me feel free, just to stay in their good graces. That was the moment I snapped, not outwardly, not with yelling or slamming doors. But inside, something changed. I realized I had been playing defense my whole life, reacting, adjusting, pleasing. Now, I was done reacting. It was time to take control. The first thing I did was stop trying to explain myself. That's what they were used to, me justifying every decision like I needed their blessing to breathe. So I went silent. No updates, no reactions, no confrontations. I let them think they'd won, that I was sulking, considering their ultimatum, weighing my future like a good little puppet. But behind the scenes, I was building something they never expected: independence. I picked up extra freelance gigs through my design network and started saving aggressively. Jade helped me set up a new bank account, completely separate from the one my dad had access to. I even found a lawyer through one of Jade's clients, a chill guy named Marcus, who didn't bat an eye when I asked about breaking financial dependencies without triggering legal drama. Turns out, most trust funds come with more loopholes than my family expected. Especially when the beneficiary, me, isn't legally bound by the conditions unless they're signed and sealed, which they weren't. Yet, at the same time, Jade and I started looking at apartments. We kept everything off-grid, no social media, no public searches. We made a fake show of taking a break from each other. My family saw it as confirmation that Jade was drifting away. My mom even texted me a smug little, "See? We only want what's best for you." They had no idea we were actually signing a lease together under a joint LLC in both our names. Jade's idea, she thought it'd be poetic, building something of our own while they thought they were tearing us apart. But here's where it really got delicious. Remember that manila envelope? The one with the trust fund clause? Well, I scanned it. Every page, every word, and I found something interesting. A clause that said the fund could be frozen, but not revoked, if I married someone my parents didn't approve of. Sounds airtight, right? Except there was one problem. They never legally documented who qualified as acceptable. It was just vague moral language like someone deemed to be of good character and standing. Super subjective, super dumb. Marcus laughed when he read it. This is basically a Reddit revenge story waiting to happen. That's when the real plan clicked into place. I started planting seeds, quietly. I let Lexi believe I was folding. Sent a few carefully worded texts about needing time to think, and maybe she was right. I knew she'd forward them to my parents, she always did. I wanted them comfortable, arrogant. The more they believed they had crushed Jade and I, the less they paid attention. Meanwhile, I went deeper into family finances. See, my dad always treated me like I wasn't smart enough to understand his business stuff. But he forgot he used to make me sit through his money talks, as a kid, lectures about estate planning, real estate investments, trust layering, and tax shelters. Turns out, I remembered more than he thought. And that came in handy when I discovered that a good chunk of the family trust wasn't even legally airtight. A few of their assets, like the vacation home they loved bragging about, were co-listed under my name for tax reasons. My dad had done it to lower their liability, but that move gave me leverage he didn't realize I had. So I did what any disgraced, manipulated, rebellious son would do. I met with a real estate attorney. Turns out, if I filed a motion to liquidate my portion of the asset, it could trigger a full evaluation of the trust, and possibly force them to buy me out if I chose to walk away. That kind of disruption? It could wreck their financial planning for years. But I didn't file, not yet. I just let them know, casually, that I'd discovered the co-ownership. Lexi freaked out, called me at 2 a.m. ranting about how I was being ungrateful and childish. Said things like, "This will hurt the whole family, not just mom and dad." I calmly replied, "Well, maybe the whole family shouldn't try to control someone else's life." She hung up. That week, I got a call from my dad. No yelling, no threats, just, calculated calm. Son, let's talk about this. Man to man. I smiled. Too late, old man. They still didn't know Jade and I were engaged again, quietly, privately, planning a life on our terms. And they definitely didn't know what I was about to do next. Go public with a few family skeletons they desperately wanted buried. I wasn't just taking control. I was about to flip the entire script. A week after my dad's fake peace offering call, I made my move. The setup was almost too perfect. Lexi had planned a family brunch to reconnect. She made a big deal out of it, texting me nonstop about how she missed the old me, and how we just want to have a calm talk. Right, I agreed, played the part. Told her I'd come, alone. Jade stayed home, even though she was dying to witness the chaos. I kissed her goodbye that morning and said, by tonight, they won't know what hit them. Brunch was held at my parents' place, the same house where I'd grown up, felt caged, silenced, molded into what they wanted. But today, I walked in a different person. Everyone was there. Mom, sitting stiff and smug at the head of the table. Dad pretending to be chill in his crisp button-down. Lexi floating around like she was hosting a reality show reunion. I played dumb, let them serve me pancakes and fake affection for a solid 20 minutes before I asked. So, can we talk about the trust fund? You could feel the air shift. Mom dropped her fork. Dad's jaw clenched. Lexi tried to pivot. Let's not do this today, but I kept my tone casual. I just want clarity, because I've been doing my own reading. And it turns out, vague morality clauses without specific definitions? Not super enforceable. Also, co-owned properties are fun, aren't they? Dad's face went red. He opened his mouth, but I cut in. Calm, precise, deadly. Oh, and by the way, you know that whole "you'll be cut off if you marry Jade" thing? I already did. Quiet courthouse wedding. 3 weeks ago. Lexi gasped so loud I almost laughed. My mom muttered, "You didn't," like she was in a soap opera. My dad actually stood up. "This isn't a joke," he barked. I stared him down. Neither is threatening your own son's future because you don't like that he's finally happy. And then I dropped the final blow. I'm liquidating my share of the Florida property. Already started the paperwork. If that triggers a full trust audit, well, guess we'll all find out how many gray areas there really are in your financial planning. Lexi snapped, "You're going to ruin all this for her?" I looked at her, dead in the eye. "No, I'm saving myself from you. From all of this." My mom started crying. Dad went silent, face pale. "Lexi?" She tried her old guilt trip routine. "You've changed, you're bitter, you're making a huge mistake." But it didn't land, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of them. I wasn't begging for love. I wasn't dancing for scraps of approval. I was standing on my own, and they had absolutely no control left. And just to twist the knife a little deeper, I left them with one final truth before walking out. I didn't lose a family. I lost a prison, and I've never been more free. The days after the brunch were quiet, eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, not even a dramatic group message from Lexi. I figured they were regrouping, maybe trying to spin a new strategy. But there was nothing left for them to spin. I'd made my choice, and this time, they weren't part of it. Jade and I moved into our new place a week later. It was small, quirky, filled with sunlight and mismatched furniture we picked out from secondhand shops. But it was ours. Every lamp, every paint-splattered table, every speck of dust. It all belonged to us, not some curated image approved by my mother or a checklist Lexi could micromanage. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. The fallout came slowly. Turns out, that trust audit I teased? It scared them more than I thought. My dad tried to quietly buy me out of the co-owned property to avoid the mess. I refused, told him I'd wait for the formal valuation. That move alone threw their estate plans into chaos. Their financial advisor even called me behind their backs, begging me to reconsider. I didn't. Lexi posted a cryptic Instagram story about betrayal from within that no one outside of our family would understand, but it made me laugh. She'd always been the master of playing victim, even when she was the one holding the knife. I left it alone, let her spiral. I was done trying to control how people saw me. I knew who I was now, and more importantly, who I wasn't. And the best part? Jade and I started our own creative studio, her art, my design work. We didn't need a loan. I had enough saved up from months of freelance, and the freedom from my family lit a fire under both of us. We worked late nights, drank bad coffee, and built something raw and real. Within 6 months, we landed our first major client. Within a year, we were profitable. Meanwhile, I heard through mutuals that Lexi's picture-perfect marriage was cracking. Her husband had apparently grown tired of the curated life. My parents, without their golden children to parade, started showing up less at church, at events. Reputation shaken, their whole, perfect family image, a little less shiny. One day, I got an email from my mom. Just a short message. "I miss you. I didn't realize how far we pushed you. I hope you're okay." I didn't reply, not out of bitterness, but because I wasn't that scared little boy anymore, desperate for approval. I was a man now, self-made, free, and unbothered. In Jade, she's my home, my anchor, my wild, brilliant chaos. They tried to control me, to shape my life like I was a doll on a shelf. Instead, I took everything they used to hold power over me, and I burned it to the ground. I didn't just walk away. I rebuilt my life, and I built it better. Story 2. This has been eating at me, and I need an outside perspective. My parents divorced when I was 10 and my brother was 13. A year later, my dad started dating the woman who is now his wife. As kids, we didn't really care much about our parents' dating lives. We were wrapped up in school and typical childhood things. When he introduced her to us, she seemed nice but distant. My mom was a flight attendant and picked up extra work after the divorce, which meant we spent more time with our dad and by extension, her. About 6 months into dating, she moved in. She never mistreated us, but she was uninterested in being any kind of parental figure. My brother loved building computers and she didn't care. I was a girly girl into nails and hair and she showed no interest. Conversations with her felt like I was annoying her. She didn't cook, didn't help with school pickups, didn't seem to care to celebrate our birthdays. She just coexisted. By the time I hit high school, I saw her more as a roommate than a stepmom. There was one moment that really stuck with me. My dad and her had friends over. I overheard the couple talking about how glad they were to never have had kids, how expensive and annoying children were, and how they preferred their money and freedom. My dad gently pushed back, saying he loved having us, but she replied with something like, "Even if you did see them as a burden, you'd never say it out loud." She laughed and agreed with her friend's anti-kid stance. They joked about kids being ungrateful, expensive, needy, and leaving parents to die alone in nursing homes. I felt sick hearing that. It felt like they were ganging up on my dad, mocking his love for us, and I internalized that moment deeply. After that, I pulled back emotionally. I stopped sharing things with my dad, and worried that maybe I was a burden. That moment truly shifted our dynamic, even if unintentionally. Now, as an adult, I see how hurt I was by her words and how much of a burden I felt for both of them. Fast forward to today. My dad and his wife are now in their mid-60s, both retired and dealing with health issues. Their 2-story home is becoming unmanageable. They want to sell it and find a single-story home, but with current housing prices and their finances, that's hard to do. Years ago, my husband and I built an in-law suite on our property. It's private, on the other side of our land, fully equipped 1-bedroom apartment intended for one of my aging parents. We're now building a second one in case my mom needs it someday. My dad recently asked if he and his wife could move into the in-law suite if they sell their house. Here's where I'm stuck. I want my dad to move in. He was always loving, responsible, and kind. He deserves a peaceful retirement. But I don't want his wife to live here. I've been wrestling with this guilt because technically, it's not just him anymore, they're a package deal. But she never acted like family. She never made an effort to connect, support, or care about us. She clearly hated children and paraded herself so proud to be child-free. But now that she's older and needs support, it's like she's benefiting from a relationship she never nurtured in me, a woman who was once a child that she seemed annoyed and burdened by. She didn't want kids, never acted like a stepmom, and made it clear she valued her freedom and money over a family. And now, I'm being asked to take her in. It feels unfair that she gets to benefit from something she never put an effort in and the stepkids she ignored. My stepdad, on the other hand, was incredible. My mom met him when I was 12 and married him in less than a year. He also didn't have children but was an amazing stepdad. Every time we were at my mom's, he was always showing interest in anything we said. He asked my brother to show him how to build a computer. He bought all the parts and they built one together. I was constantly asking him to take me to my best friend's house who lived 20 minutes away, and not once did he seem annoyed or frustrated. One time my mom had grounded me for a weekend and I was super bummed out because my best friend was having a slumber party and I couldn't go. Well, my stepdad went to the store and got me a box of my favorite watermelon popsicles and a bag of hot Cheetos. I didn't ask father any of that, but he knew I was crying about not going, and he waited until my mom was in bed to knock on my door and give me those snacks. He said I deserved to be grounded for what I did, but that I also deserved these snacks because I was a good kid. This is a core memory of mine, and when my mom and stepdad aren't able to live alone anymore, I'll be so happy to care for both of them. But not my stepmom though. My brother agrees with me. He understands why I don't want her here and supports me in whatever I say. But I know if I tell my dad she's not welcome, he won't come either. So, am I terrible for not wanting my dad's child-free wife to move into the apartment I built for him?